Hugo Lloris set to have an operation. He looks like he'll be out for 6 to 8 weeks. He's had quite the season so far, hasn't he? Captaining France to another World Cup final. But is it fair to say rather error-prone for Tottenham? He's made the most errors leading to goals compared to the other big six keepers this season. Of the big six teams, Spurs, United, City and Liverpool have all had the same number one since 2018. So what we did was we compared the number of errors they've all made since then. And if we have a look at that, it's we can see that Lloris, there we go, is on 4 compared to the others who aren't. Is there significance in that, or is it more, as a keeper, you're looking more at what's going on around that leading up to the errors?
Yeah, look, whenever a goalkeeper, obviously, as we all know, a goalkeeper makes a mistake, it's very, very obvious. And sometimes those errors are bigger than others, right, that lead to that goal. And there's no doubt about it. Any top world-class goalkeeper making a big error, you need to limit it to 1, maybe 2 maximum, if 2 at all. You're talking about top level.
So that's this season.
Yep.
And if we look at it in compared to other seasons, actually, if you try and balance it out over time, he's not that far away.
Well, I think David De Gea is a really good example of how you can have a really rough period of time. You can go through a real trough in your career in terms of performances week in, week out, but you can turn it around and get back into playing some really good football, which is David De Gea is doing right now. So as much as the criticism was there, even from fans, from the media, he was mentally strong enough to turn that around. For Hugo, look, he's made mistakes also since coming back from the World Cup, and I think, I mentioned it earlier on, that mental sort of fatigue, the mental effect of losing a World Cup final is really difficult to even imagine. But it certainly, I believe, must have a part to play, because Hugo Lloris, I'll say, I'm a big fan. I think he's a really good goalkeeper. And yes, he's not playing particularly well, and certainly not the levels that we expect him to play at the moment. But there's no doubt to me that he's still a top class goalkeeper.
Yeah, because 4 of his 9 have come in this season, so it could be just one of those troughs, couldn't it? He's also Spurs captain. He's the only goalkeeper in the league captaining their side at the moment. Does that add more pressure to him? If he makes a mistake, is he carrying that heavier on him because he's supposed to be the leader of the team?
Quite possibly. And I think if you add all the things together, so being at the World Cup, playing the entire month of the World Cup, getting to the final, losing the final, the disappointment, the mental fatigue, the mental effect of that, to then coming back and playing in the Premier League and then not quite going to plan, making the odd mistake along the way, that all builds up. And there's going to be moments of doubt. There's going to be moments of feeling very alone and isolated and feeling like you just can't do anything right at the moment. Even though you might play well for 89 minutes, there's one mistake, and sometimes that happens. Sometimes it ends up being a pattern that you play, you do everything right, and there's one mistake that lets you down throughout the game. And sometimes you can go on a couple of games in a row of doing that, and that's the challenge of trying to mentally refocus and get things right. So the injury might not be a bad thing for him, to get a bit of time away from it, reset, refocus, and come back flying again.
Yeah, Tottenham have just confirmed that news, by the way. 6 to 8 weeks he will be out for knee injury picked up against City. Keepers also have to be good with their feet these days, don't they? So we've compared Lloris to the 2 considered the best with their feet in the league. That's Alisson and Ederson. And Lloris is some way behind in terms of passes completed, passing accuracy.
I think it's a bit unfair, though.
Yeah,
I think it's unfair to compare to these 2, because they are...
Oh, they are different.
They are different. They're a different level altogether, and also the way their team plays, right? So the way that Liverpool and Manchester City play is different to Spurs. they're very much set up to really play out from the back all the time. They spread their players all across the field. Tottenham are more defensive orientated, hitting teams more on the counter. There is not as many options to play the ball out at the back, and more often than not, you're under far more pressure when you do. So, and that's not trying to take anything away from Ederson and Alisson, because they are phenomenal. I mean, Ederson to me is the best. I mean, there's a changeover in the accuracy as opposed to completed. I think Ederson is that genuine outfield player in goal. He's unbelievable with the ball at his feet, and probably would look very, very comfortable playing on the football field with the ball at his feet all the time. And Alisson, I think, is probably the more kind of mixture of a traditional goalkeeper, but a goalkeeper who's modern because he's so good with his feet as well.
So that style of play, does that perhaps weigh in? Because if we break this down further, Lloris attempts more long balls per game than the other two.
There you go.
And that most probably backs up what you were saying there.
Yes. And I didn't know that stat beforehand, but it is absolutely no surprise to me whatsoever. The way that Spurs have set up, the way they are a bit deeper, the way they try and hit teams on the counter. There are going to be times where he does knock the ball longer more often, and that's clear by the stats here.
Yeah. Does it get in your head, though? It must get in your head if you're trying to play balls out and they're going astray or they're getting cut out. Well, and the next time you got the ball at your feet, you think, oh no, what do I do now?
Well, at times, I mean, there's a mixture of things here. That there's a message of we want to play out as much as we possibly can. The team is so spread, we need to play out because they've got the quality players to do so. But then the setup is not necessarily right, or you're playing out the wrong ball. He's made the wrong decision there, and obviously it's easy to say it's the wrong decision because he's conceded a goal straight from it. But I think that you can also be guilty of overplaying. So as a goalkeeper, I know what he feels like. You're trying to knock the ball long, you're losing out, then you try and knock a ball short, gets cut out. You're kind of almost caught in between the two. You're not quite sure what to play anymore because neither is effective. And I think at times at Spurs that's obvious.
Yeah. From what I'm processing everything you're saying because I love to try and learn. No, so what I think I'm hearing you saying is Lloris is still a great goalkeeper. He's going through one of those troughs that inevitably will happen. So 6 to 8 weeks out, is that a good thing or a bad thing for him? Because I would be thinking, just take me away from the firing line. I want to try and get myself back together. And actually, I haven't been dropped. This is because I'm injured. And therefore, maybe, while it won't feel like it to him at the moment, this could be a blessing in disguise.
Yes. So in a nutshell, yes. Look, I'm only speculating, but I'm talking about the fact that the pressure, the disappointment, the mental fatigue of a World Cup, the disappointment of not winning it. I think he mentioned something not so long ago about that pressure and about the disappointment of the World Cup final and losing it and how much it's weighed on him, to coming back almost straight away into a Tottenham side and making mistakes. The spotlight is very much on him again. Question marks about his longevity at the club and about whether or not he is still able to play at this level. All those little things play a part. They take a toll on you at times. So to be out for 6 to 8 weeks might not be the best situation, but in terms of being out of the spotlight now is potentially a good thing. It maybe gives him an opportunity, if he is in that position, to allow things to settle down a little bit, maybe to try and digest it a little bit better, and maybe be mentally stronger and in a better place once he gets back.
Okay, we've got about 15 seconds. When you were coming to the end of your career, what's the first thing you noticed was in decline?
For me, it was probably the kicking. I mean, kicking was never my strong point anyway. It was probably one of my weakest points in my game, but the distance of which you kick the ball. And that was probably the most noticeable. And it probably happened more so when I stopped playing week in, week out. Obviously, that happens a lot quicker then. But there was probably the back end of times where you kind of, my career when I was playing week in, week out, you started to realise you're not quite getting the consistency and the length all the time.